February 23rd, 2024. The time is 10 a.m. I'm calling this meeting to order. In attendance are Commissioners Matari and Duncan. Are there changes to the agenda?
No changes.
Nope. Okay, public comment? All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead with our Justice Center update from Turner, Townsend, Heery, and our Representative David Mendez.
Good morning. David Mendez with Turner and Townsend Heery. Update today, I think, is mainly around the costs that we've received, the spreadsheet that Brandy has helped me develop, and I think it's been distributed to you. And there are some things that I wanted to point out. I'm sure you have questions. There's an item 29 that I've carried forward as a rough estimate because I know that there's costs that have been incurred by the county. That's owner, staff, and administration. I just threw $200,000 in as an estimate that is based on nothing at this point. It's a placeholder, a point of discussion. And then from there, also at the bottom of the sheet, another cost that is carried is the owner carried contingency, which you have at $1,027,000, which is 2.5, just under 3%. And we can talk about that. Typically, owner contingency is usually 5%, so it's a bit lower than I'm used to seeing. However, the use of that contingency can vary from project to project, but typically we don't tap into that unless we want an owner betterment type of an improvement to the current project plans. So, and that usually happens towards the end of a project if we want to add something to it.
I have a question. With respect to the 3% versus the 5%, would it also be safe to say that we're now deep enough into this project, we have our cost figures from our bids, that you feel more comfortable with a 3% contingency versus a 5%?
Most certainly.
Because
yes.
There's more questions in the beginning of a project, things that can happen?
Correct. There are some things that I've received a list just minutes ago. We asked for a list from LCA of betterments, a list of betterments that's come through. I haven't even opened the attachment yet. We're going to talk about that in the OAC meeting. So I imagine there's some issues that they want to go over with the contractor before we really present that to you. But
Okay.
But we'll have that coming for you.
And then the $200,000 for employees, can you kind of describe, the county staff time? Can you kind of describe how you envision that?
So contract administration, advertising, meeting with the contractor, deciding on the design team, the construction team, is all time that the county has spent. And then during construction, you have done my functions, which is construction management, and certified payrolls. You've spent a lot of time. That's not accounted in the spreadsheet anywhere else. My understanding is that's being paid through the grant directly. So I think my reason for keeping that in there is to keep in mind that you have incurred costs for this project that aren't being accounted for.
Okay. And one of the things, and this is for Commissioner Duncan's benefit, last week we had a meeting. And, one of the concerns that was brought up was the fact that county staff were getting involved with certifying payroll. And Boughton had a contractual obligation to do that, right? That's what
Correct.
we talked about. And that to have Heery, your firm, oversee that would keep a direct line of liability as to where the responsibility would lie if there were a mistake that were made. And one of the things why we have to be very careful as a county to inject ourselves in certain processes is that when our staff start to go into other people's payroll to verify things and there's a mistake, when that time comes for responsibility to fall in someone's lap, people go like this. And so one of the emphasis that came out of that meeting was the fact that we want to keep that liability on Boughton's lap, because we've had some situations where staff actually showed up to other people's offices to help them with their payroll. And we want to mitigate that liability and keep it where it's supposed to be, because there is a contractual obligation to this county to make sure that it's done correctly. And if it's not done correctly, that they will be the party responsible for fixing it, even though we ultimately are responsible. So that's something that was discussed at the meeting. And David, did you have anything you wanted to add to that, or?
Well, I would just be cautioned that, I mean, it is an obligation of the grant that we do check the work to make sure that everybody has been doing what they're supposed to be doing. So while you're correct, and that was a very good observation on your part, that that we don't want to take on the responsibilities that the contractor is supposed to be taking care of, because then you take on the liability of it. So while that's true, I just don't want to imply or to draw inference from this discussion that we still don't have the obligation to verify that they've done the work. So
Absolutely, and that's part of what we are requesting of you, to make sure it gets done, because this is
Correct.
something you've done on multiple occasions, and so you understand how it works versus someone who is a little bit newer at this. And of course, with employee staff, if a mistake is made, it's, there's little that can be done. We have to own it completely, where we obviously have a reliance upon you that you have some competency in that.
yes, I've done this before,
Yeah, so, thank you.
which is why you hired us. So
Yes, thank you.
And so one of our employees on it, I mean, she came from Panhandle Area Council where they used to do this, so that was one of her job functions over there.
Yeah.
So, but this is great, thank you.
Are there any questions about the spreadsheet? I don't know, you've had not had time to digest it yet, but I have I've gone through the plans and specifications, and I've done an estimate of what I feel additional costs are going to potentially be incurred, and those are itemized in, I guess that's a kind of an orangish yellow.
Yeah, item 28, what kind of legal services? Are those in-house legal services?
Yes, that's a normal soft cost that is carried. I know I've been in meetings where you've had an attorney, the county council, I believe, has been involved in. I don't know how you're charging for that, or if you are having anyone from the outside review contracts, things like that.
Yeah,
So if a legal question comes up, we need to have a budget for that.
sure. Yeah, it's been in-house so far. So I guess the 250,000 with line items 28 and 29, I mean, those are covered by our regular payroll. So are you suggesting that they come out of ARPA, or, I mean, part of it is ARPA because part of it is the staff that had the job.
My intent was to draw your attention to the fact that we have not budgeted for that work, and we've not accounted for that work.
Okay, so I guess I'll ask the auditor then, is that something that we have to come out of fund balance with, or it's already covered in payroll?
So I would say that we are using ARPA dollars for salaries, so we could go in and put the actual amount we have spent to date in salaries and keep that updated with what's coming from ARPA. As far as staff time from people like myself whose positions are property tax funded, that would be up to the commissioners if you would like to see that staff time captured here as a cost of the building, and we can say, we could say the funding source is property tax, we can do that. I don't know, does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's not something that's gonna come from fund balance because, people's salaries are levied.
Right.
We could show the ARPA funded salaries, and then if you were to do that, I would have to try and come up with an estimate of how much of my time is spent on ARPA. go through everyone. So I don't know
I don't
if it
think
would be
it's-
worth the time.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. My question just, when we're talking about the bottom line dollars, is that taken back out again?
Yeah, so the 200,000, I could go and update that to be the amount of the ARPA and then plug it in as being funded so that it's not coming through as a shortfall. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have not had a chance to go through it like Mr. Mendez indicated. So, yeah, if I have any more questions, I'll just reach out. But I appreciate getting this document.
Were you suggesting that the 200,000 be allocated to ARPA?
No, I was just making sure that we weren't double counting it. Like it was getting paid out of one account, but now we're counting it and we're going to have to pay it out of, it counts towards the shortfall that we're going to use fund balance for. That's what I was just making sure.
Oh, okay.
And I wouldn't suggest that we, if that's the case, if this is being funded elsewhere and you're not concerned about tracking this, if they're not bond funds that are being applied to this, that we can remove those line items. That's mainly to bring attention to that, to make sure that we're covering it.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, because that's the whole point, is just to understand what we're spending completely on this project, and employee time does have a cost to it, so, thank you.
There are some items that, like 31 and 32, so envelope thickness, cohesion, adhesion, fire stop, et cetera, testing. So we had to bring on another special inspector to inspect the, we ran that past you. You approved the contract with, to test the thickness of the moisture protection on the outside of the foundation. So this is more testing that will be required interior to the building as we go through it. So moving on from that, there has been some review of permit comments, structural comments. I mentioned that we have a CCD 04 that we're anticipating from some changes that have been made post-bid. Some of those comments are coming in, and they're good comments, and not all of them are adds. Some are potential deducts. There was one that I was actually surprised by, and it's a roof leak detection. I'll need to get into that and find out what that's all about, because that's not typically something we put on buildings. And as I mentioned, this Thursday we'll be talking after the OAC meeting about that list of betterment items. And we'll develop that list and refine it a bit before we bring it up to you. That's, I don't have any additional costs to talk about at this point, but just that we have those coming up on that CCD 4.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
All right, public comment? No? Okay. Well, thank you, folks. 10:13, meeting adjourned.